All right, we have been live for 10 seconds and have not immediately dropped 35 million frames, so I think we are all set to go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Sound Goblin Storytime special presentation, Talkin'ronpa. This is a podcast with slides where we're going to be going over the Danganronpa 3 The End of Hope's Peak Academy anime. I am your host, Bograt.
I am the Krampus.
I'm Shiv.
I'm Hunter Green.
And I'm Vincent.
So the format of this is going to be as a sort of visual podcast, I guess is the best way to put it. We're just going to be kind of talking about it. We've watched a few of the episodes. We have some slides and some screenshots from it that'll go up here. And we're going to kind of give our review. We're going to be doing essentially 4 episodes a week. So this week it is Future Arc episodes 1 and 2 and Despair Arc episodes 1 and 2. If you want to follow along with our watch-along, essentially you watch the Future Arc episode first, then the Despair Arc episode, and back and forth like that. That's the way they were aired. We'll talk about that in a little second here. But just to give kind of a brief overview of Danganronpa 3, The End of Hope's Peak Academy. So this was an anime series that was actually announced after Danganronpa V3, the next game in the series, had already been initially revealed. It was already actually known at this point that V3 was not going to be a direct sequel to the first 2 games. It was known that the Hope's Peak Academy saga would get sort of a continuation and conclusion, but it was not going to be the next game in the series. There was actually, at the same event where Danganronpa 3, The End of Hope's Peak Academy was revealed, was when they actually revealed that V3 was going to be a fully sort of separate thing. And that there was going to be an anime series that would close out the sort of Hope's Peak Academy trilogy, as they referred to it. So this anime was directed by Seiji Kishi. He was the director of the adaptation of the first Danganronpa game. Danganronpa 1 did get an anime adaptation. Danganronpa 2 did not, for whatever reason. Not really sure on that. Seiji Kishi is also the one who adapted the anime versions of Persona 4 and Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor 2, and also is the director of Assassination Classroom, so he has a whole lot of school kids plus violence work under his belt, I guess.
Yes, also, as an aside, if you do actually want to watch, if you for some reason are only watching anime of Danganronpa and want to watch Danganronpa 2, I suggest just a Let's Play of it. Like on our Sound Goblin Gaming YouTube channel. Okay, so a self-plug aside.
Let's be real here. I wouldn't recommend they watch our Let's Play.
Fine. We're not missing episodes on that one, are we?
I don't think so. I think we got all of 2. Regardless.
Okay. Our quality is okay.
Yeah, so the anime itself is split into 2 separate arcs. There is the Despair arc, which takes place before the events of the first Danganronpa game, and sort of is kind of the events leading up to the biggest, most tragic event in human history and the formation of Ultimate Despair, which are those characters from the second game. Likewise, there is the Future arc, which actually takes place after the events of the second game, and is sort of the repercussions of what happened in the second game, because in the second game, spoilers if you haven't seen it yet, but it was basically revealed that Makoto Naegi, the protagonist from the first game, had essentially, without the authorization of the Future Foundation, taken all these members of Ultimate Despair and put them through the Neo World Project to try and sort of restore them and save them from despair. But he did that without permission, and so now he has to deal with sort of the fallout from that, and things go south from there. So a few voice cast notes. Obviously, if you're playing the games over here in the U.S., typically you're going to hear the U.S. dub actors for that, just because the games themselves, if I recall correctly, don't even have the option for the Japanese dub. But the voice cast in the anime is actually almost entirely different for the characters returning from the first game. It is the voice cast that was used for the anime adaptation of the first game, but literally the only 2 characters that have the same voice actor between the first game and the anime are Greg Ayers, who voices Monokuma, and Bryce Papenbrook, who's the voice of Makoto Naegi. Every other voice actor is actually a different voice actor than who was in the first game as these characters. the second game characters that return, since obviously they are sort of the major focus of Despair Arc, mostly have the same voice actors in the English dub. It's a little over half the characters, I want to say, have the same voice actors. If you're watching the dub version, I think most of us are watching the subtitles, so it's of little consequence either way. But yeah, so the voice cast is a little different on the Despair Arc side, and almost entirely different on the Future Arc side, except most of the Future Arc characters are new characters anyways, so kinda whatever. But the unfortunately, some of the fan favorites from the second game did not return. Gundam Tanaka, for instance, is a different voice actor, and I believe Nekomaru is also a different voice actor on the dub side. So with that, let's get started talking about the episodes in order of watch. So we have Future Arc Episode 1. We open to an ominous setting of what appears to be a trial of some sort, with Makoto Naegi in handcuffs and being accused of treason by some pretty boy motherfucker over here looking like Yu Narakami from Persona 4. We cut to a little bit of backstory talking about Ultimate Despair, and yet another translation for what now we are apparently calling the biggest, most atrocious, despair-inducing incident in human history, which I think, if I'm recalling correctly, brings us to 4 different translations for the name of the same exact event now.
Look, it's really bad. It can't just have one.
Yes, but we should probably refer to it by one of them, only one of them, for purposes of not confusing the crap out of ourselves.
Whenever we need to officially refer to it, we'll go with the one that this anime translation uses, which is the biggest, most atrocious, despair-inducing incident in human history. Suffice it to say, I'm probably going to come up with a different name for it every time I reference it.
I'll just call it the Crappening.
that works.
The Great Crappening.
So we do get some shots of all of our sort of cast from DR2 in their ultimate despair forms. We'll see those in a minute here. There's a better shot of it that I screenshotted later on. We also get our first shot of... so here's like Gundam with his army of animals, including the intensely intimidating giraffe, I guess. Like, don't get me wrong.
Kick your ass.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a giraffe could fuck me up, but it's really hard to be afraid of the giraffe when it's surrounded by, like, a fucking gorilla, a tiger, a fucking bull elephant. Like, I'm sorry, the giraffe is the thing I'm least concerned with in this image. Here is Hyoko and Miura holding a concert for, you get a shot of the audience real quick, which is a bunch of people in those weird Monokuma helmets we saw primarily in Ultra Despair Girls. Yep. And then there's Nagito, whose sign of, like, being in Ultimate Despair is actually him just being a bitch in servant mode, bowing down to a bunch of kindergartners.
Pretty appropriate for him.
Yeah, so we also get our first glimpse of the Future Foundation, the major sort of characters for this series. These are characters we'll get more into sort of as things go on, but this is really the first time we've seen anyone involved with the Future Foundation that isn't one of our characters from the first game. We know that they all kind of got involved, but...
Before this, we only got to see, like, the grunts in suits at the start of Ultra Despair Girls, before they all got eaten by Monokuma robots.
People who are effectively NPCs.
Yeah, exactly. They might as well have been drawn like the shadow people in the background, for all that they mattered.
Pretty much. The only significant characters we had seen prior to this anime that were part of Future Foundation were the survivors of DR1, who had all joined Future Foundation.
Because what the hell else were they going to do?
Yeah, we kind of get a brief rundown that there was like a huge confrontation between the Future Foundation and the Remnants of Despair, and everything is sort of fucked. Basically, the Remnants of Despair have been running havoc over the world for some time now. Future Foundation has organized and been fighting back against them, and is doing a decent job of gaining ground, but the world is still pretty fucked up at this point. And then we are actually sent into the intro of the anime, and we get our first, like, real decent look at these characters. So first, we have a Vash the Stampede cosplayer. We've got somebody improperly wearing a face mask. They're supposed to go over your nose, for fuck's sake. We have a man
It's just to
very...
keep her-
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's just to keep her from drinking her own stuff.
Yeah, probably. Let's see. We've got a fashion disaster who's wearing a fur coat and shorts.
Yep.
Fur coat, shorts, leggings.
I think I called her a Pokemon trainer in the wrong series.
Pretty much. We've got a member of the Straw Hat Pirates.
Not wrong.
Not wrong at
Yeah.
all. I like it.
Miss mostly not appearing in this series, so we'll talk about her over in Despair Arc.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll get that when we get to that.
The Mighty Manitar!
The Great Gozu, thank you very much.
A displaced 1930s riverboat gambler.
Who looks like he's enjoying his death way too much.
I thought he was just an extra from Black Cat.
The Siscon gangster.
Wait, no. That's the wrong Persona game, you.
Oh, no.
And super high school level old man.
Who's into some kinky electric shit.
So we come out of the intro to a sweeping shot over the ocean and some helicopters flying towards an Art Deco dildo tower. Inside, in a boardroom, we meet and get the actual names of those characters we saw in the intro. They're all directors of various divisions of Future Foundation. There's Kazuo Tengen, who is the old man and actually the chairman of the Future Foundation. We've got Great Gozu, which is the person in the bull mask, who is a former super high school level wrestler. We have Koichi Kizakura, who is the riverboat gambler, who was a talent scout for Hope's Peak Academy. We have Miyaya Gekogahara, who somehow the images of that one got eaten from the intro. I referred to her as a squid kid. She is the super high school level therapist. We have Seiko Kimura, the lady who can't wear a face mask properly, who is the super high school level pharmacist. Juzo Sakakura, whose image also got eaten, and I just said he was super concerned about the back of his neck getting cold, apparently. He has a really dumb
Yes.
He has a fur-lined
hood
jacket
thing.
And is the super high school level dickbag.
Asshole.
Yeah. He is actually the former super high school level boxer, but yes, is the out of a group of people that are kind of a bunch of assholes, he takes the crown as king asshole. We have Ruruka Ando, who was the former super high school level confectioner, at which point it clicked with me that she's dressed like a shitty candy. We have Daisaku Bandai, who is the super high school level farmer, and my comment is, yo ho ho, he took a bite of little girl voice fruit.
I also would like to point out that this line on this screen you got here, he is full of these sayings that make no fucking sense.
Yes, Daisuke Bandai does have a whole bunch of, like, sort of old adage wisdom stuff, except they're not actually correct, and he just kind of says whatever the fuck, and none of it makes any sense. We have Sonosuke Izuyoi, who's the Vash the Stampede cosplayer, who is the former super high school level blacksmith. We have Chisa Yukizome, who's the one I said we will talk a lot more about in Despair Arc, seeing as she's kind of the main character of it. And she is the former super high school level housekeeper. And they also mention the name of Kyosuke Munakata, who is the P4 Pro Tag. They are apparently here to discuss Makoto's Negi's betrayal, but also talk about the remnants of despair. You know, kind of talking about they're still out there causing havoc around the world. They're not anywhere near like they were at their peak. Everyone's mean to Bandai, and they suck because of it. Munakata walks in and steps directly onto a chair and then up onto the table, walks striding across the room like an asshole. I think it's supposed to show us how serious he is, but honestly, if I were in a conference room and somebody walked straight in, stepped on a chair, then up onto the table, I'd mostly just think they were an idiot who didn't know how to sit. Like, dude, you could have made your fucking point from the floor. Everybody was already looking at you when you came in.
You're also already one of the tallest motherfuckers in the room. We already have to look up to you.
Yeah. So he is the so he is the Division 2 director and also the vice chairman of Future Foundation, which we get from his little sort of name card. But he's also kind of a dickbag. We'll see much more of that in a little bit. We get full frontal snapshots of all of the Remnants of Despair leaders, which are the characters from Danganronpa 2, and confirmation that basically the whole events of 2 were Naegi acting on his own without approval of the Future Foundation. Also, apparently, each character from 2 is responsible for the deaths of at least 1 million people. I feel like that legitimately seems unlikely considering how incompetent Nagito is.
I'd also point out that
maybe it's an average. Maybe some of them killed a bunch of extra people.
My assumption is they're giving everyone who was part of was it Ultra Despair Girls to Nagito.
Yeah, we can go with that.
Yeah.
Also, like how Mahiru is somehow involved with that. Like, all she does is take pictures, people.
Pictures of death.
But yeah, they do specifically say, like, each of them is a 1 million level murderer. Which is honestly just hilarious to me.
Maybe it's a score.
Yeah,
and they found a cheat code.
Certain people are worth different points.
So, given the actions he took, they basically suspect Naegi is, like, allied, or even possibly part of Ultimate Despair, and that him defeating Junko was just for show. And with that, we finally make our way back to where we started, him being handcuffed and accused of, treason. So that's a sort of narrative device they seem to use a lot in Future Arc, is before the opening, we get a scene that will come a couple minutes into the episode, and then we kind of jump back a second to get to where we were. So most of the directors seem to be of the opinion that Naegi is guilty, even before they have any discussion.
Because everyone is idiots in the series.
Yeah, pretty much. Great Gozu at least stands up for going through the process, though at the moment it's kind of unclear whether or not he thinks Naegi is guilty. He at least says, we should actually, have the trial we, came here to do.
Brought him for.
However, because the boxer decided that the best thing to do was sock Naegi in the gut hard enough for blood to come out of his mouth, it's decided that questioning will wait until he's had a chance to recover. Pardon me for a moment here. Sorry about that. We do get treated to another... hold on a second. Sorry, I got lost in my notes for a second there. So we do get a full external shot of the tower to reveal that it is, in fact, a gigantic penis.
On top of an unknown.
We get a scene between Chisa and Kiyosaki. They're obviously trying to build some relationship intrigue between these two characters, but I don't give a shit about either of them, so this really was just a way to burn 2 minutes of screen time. Then we have cut to Kyoko and Asahina having a talk in the bathroom about how they want to help Naegi, but this seems to mostly just be a little bit more background building to sort of reinforce that Kyoko is Naegi's boss, i.e. she's the leader of Division 14 in Future Foundation, and Asahina actually works in a different division than the rest of the Danganronpa 1 survivors. We then cut to a scene of Chisa helping treat Naegi's injuries. Through discussion, it's revealed that she was the teacher for the students that became Ultimate Despair, so she kind of appreciates that Naegi was trying to help them. Naegi's unfailing optimism keeps shining through, showing that he believes there's hope in everyone that can be reached. Chisa says that Kyosuke is the Future Foundation's hope, and thinks that if he and Naegi can work together, it'd make an even better hope. I feel it is important that I bring up at this point that Kyosuke Munakata is not and never has been associated with capital H hope. Chisa is basically just saying that he's a good leader for Future Foundation, and everybody puts their hopes in him. This is probably a mistake.
He was the
almost
ultimate council president.
What are you talking about? He shows himself to be super full of hope in the next episode? Or is it later in this episode? Any case, he's going to be a piece of shit here shortly, so...
Yes. I think
Second
officially
I think you're thinking of next episode.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a piece of shit in this episode. He's a colossal piece of shit in episode 2. So we do cut back into the hallway, and we get our formal introduction to our final principal character, Ryota Mitrai, who in the intro looks like an incredibly generic like anime character, but here he has a little bit more character to him. He's got sort of bags under his eyes and stuff. He is the former super high school level animator. However, before we can get too into sort of what's going on and why he's there, the building starts shaking, and Asahina accidentally opens the dead guard storage closet, just spilling them everywhere.
Why do we still have the dead guard storage closet inside the building?
Well, where else are we going
Why
to
is it
put
in the
out
women's
back?
restroom?
In the
Also-
shed out back.
Also, why do all the guards look the same? And how do they do that neck trick?
Well, they can only do it once.
So we do cut back from the commercial break, because it kind of goes to commercial break right after that, to Yasuhiro being outside the building because they don't let him inside, and this is probably for the best.
Probably.
Turns out that the shaking of the building was actually the building being under attack, despite them earlier saying that it's totally cool and couldn't happen at all because super awesome, perfect, pretty boy Kyosuke built this building himself, and it's not on any maps, and I think that about sums up the general competency of the Future Foundation, i.e., I'm a genius! Oh no!
Yes.
Very much. Speaking of Yasuhiro, still super rich, still super dumb, breaking yet another, was it 300,000 yen crystal?
It was 3 million.
3 million
3
yen
million, yeah.
crystal.
Yes, it was-
So,
Which translates to about 30 grand.
So as an aside, this is the scene where I started noticing there's a lot of like little blink and you'll miss it moments that reference like images they took from the other games. Because like the scene of his crystal ball shattering on the ground here is a dead ringer for the picture from the first Danganronpa trial.
Yeah, I mean, they're
And it,
being referential. It's kind of what they're
yeah,
trying to do
it
through
was
the
a minor
series.
thing, but it was just interesting to me. It's like catching all the little moments that are like flat out lifts from the other games.
Well, also, question. What's that coming out of those guards' mouth and nose?
That's blood.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing that I noticed.
But blood is pink.
Yeah, that's the other thing I noticed. The future arc has regularly colored blood.
Yeah, they just do regular colored blood in this series, just because they don't need it to be stylized and they don't need to dodge video game ratings. Which, as we've discussed previously when we were talking about the games, was part of the reason behind the neon pink blood was dodging ratings boards. So all exits from the building end up getting blocked off by rubble from the attack, so anyone inside the building is now stuck in there. Everyone is worried about the attack, even more so when they can't manage to reach security or anyone outside the building. Then the suspiciously black and white pellet canisters roll into the room and start releasing sleeping gas, which knocks everybody out. And when they wake up, they've all got bracelets on with timers on them. They're still in what appears to be the same room. It still looks like a conference room, but it's all sort of wrecked and torn up, and there's rubble everywhere. And then...
What's happening?
in a shocking twist, it turns out Monokuma is back. If anyone is legitimately shocked by this, I have some keys over here I can jangle to keep you occupied while the rest of us discuss things. Naegi, for instance, for reference, is legitimately shocked by this.
I mean, that's kind. I would say that's kind of fair for him, except he also would have just dealt with the events of Danganronpa 2. So where Monokuma took over a computer thing they had set up. So
Yes,
And
but it was
also-
brought by one of the. It was brought by one of the Ultimate Bear. Put in.
But also, he should know by now that since Junko basically turned herself into an AI, can basically kind of appear out of nowhere effectively if some nonsense happens and someone inserts a Junko.exe into something.
Those are all pretty solid points, but we'll see how that pans out. So Monokuma, go ahead.
Also, another point is Makoto Naegi, he's surprised by basically everything.
Fair enough.
it's the hope.
So Monokuma, in very typical Monokuma, I'm not mad, I'm not owned, you're owned fashion, is very annoyed that the Future Foundation has been managing to gain ground against the Remnants of Despair, and has decided to force them all into a killing game because of this. Naegi is like, man, fuck this noise, not this time. But unfortunately, somebody decided that Chisa needed to just hang out on the chandelier.
Ooh.
Violently. And then the chain snaps, and the chandelier falls onto the conference table and shatters. 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
I was gonna say, that's a very conveniently timed chain, too.
Yeah, so our episode concludes with the declaration that this will be the ultimate showdown between Monokuma and Naegi. That somewhat leads into a little bit of a terminology thing, but we'll get to that when we sort of get over to Despair Arc, or Future Arc Episode 2.
Yep.
Because there's a
But
little
now-
bit of a terminology discrepancy. But now we get to Despair Arc Episode 1.
Yep.
Things start off...
Which
Go ahead.
things start off with a, yep, that's me.
Yeah, it's a weirdly meta, in this series, I know, whatever. With
Yeah.
Chisa watching her own dead body on screen in a movie theater, basically sort of that kind of final scene of Future Arc 1. Thus we get sort of a framing arc for the Despair arc, in that it's Chisa recounting the events that led up to the truly most awful day of horror that humanity has ever seen. We cut to the intro, though I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one, because we're already familiar with basically all of the characters. All told, Despair Arc is honestly kind of an interesting flip in that regard, because whereas in Future Arc we only have like 4 characters we do know, in Despair Arc, including the characters we just met in Future Arc, there's only like 3 or 4 significant characters we haven't met yet. We are actually already fairly familiar with a lot of these characters, so it takes a little bit less time sort of having to introduce these characters, because it's sort of assumed we already know some general things about them and some of their personality quirks, even if we may not necessarily know exactly how they were before all the events of the games.
We have a decent idea because of Danganronpa 2 of how they were. Though with that said, I'm not exactly have we or have we not actually seen the principal?
So we have actually seen the principal before. So it does start off with Chisa being assigned as the assistant homeroom teacher for the 77th class of Hope's Peak Academy, which is the characters from Danganronpa 2, by the principal of Hope's Peak Academy, Jin Kirigiri. He has come up before in the first game, and we've seen like pictures of him. This is the first time we've actually seen him while he was alive. He has never actually like shown up in any of the games before. I think we technically heard his voice in a recording in Danganronpa 1.
Yes.
But yeah,
I think we saw his bones in Danganronpa 1, which means we've seen part of him, I guess.
we also
Awesome.
we also did see a photo of him with Kyoko.
Yeah.
Which is actually, it shows up a little bit later. It is a photo on his desk in his office here. But yeah, so we have seen him before, but this is the first time we've actually like seen him alive and like doing things.
I count that as like a half appearance, maybe.
Yeah. Also, for some reason, there's a malnourished man in a bad pimp Halloween costume inside the principal's office. Kizukota... Go ahead.
He's in the other arc, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
But this is where we actually find out that he's actually the main course teacher of the 77th class. In the Future Arc, it only refers to him as the division head of one of the divisions and just calls him a scout. It does not actually reveal that he is their teacher. So he is the lead teacher for the class, and Chisa will be working with him to teach the students. And by working with him, I mean that Kizukura is just going to leave all the work to Chisa.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure it's fair to say he was their teacher, since it doesn't seem like he actually ever attended the class.
He's doing very important things of sitting in the principal's office talking to the principal.
He's hungover.
That too.
That is explicitly why he's there right now, because he's hungover and doesn't want to go to class. This will be a running theme throughout Despair Arc. I don't think Kizukura ever actually teaches the class.
There is a question of how much teaching the class actually needs, considering how Hope's Peak Academy works, but
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a second. So we've shown that Chisa is incredibly enthusiastic about her job as she thumps herself in the chest hard enough to cause herself coughing, and then bolts off out the door and down the hallway. And it's revealed by conversation between Kirigiri and Kizakura that she was hired on the recommendation of Kiyosaki, and there's some sort of internal politics thing going on at Hope Peak Academy. That there's they talk about there being factions and stuff like that. We do get our first look at our old friends from Danganronpa 2 as Chisa enters the classroom to find Baby Gangster, Photo Normie, Lolly Psycho, and the Weirdo Princess there. When Hiyoko says some bullyish things to Chisa, she responds in a way. I don't really know if this is a joke that's just lost in translation or just Danganronpa being very weird again. Either way, this is what happens.
Well, she was a former student at the school. I'm willing to bet she knows how dangerous some of them can be.
Also, as an aside, I think this is just her being weird. I can't think of any specific cultural note that got lost in translation here.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a series.
Yeah, one of the things Hiyoko says in her bullying statement is basically about killing Chisa, but just to be your teacher has lots of life insurance. It's what? Then Mikan shows up, and it takes all of 3 seconds after her coming in the classroom to fall in a compromising position. Just so we are clear in advance, there's a few times throughout this series, at least mostly involving Mikan, where there will be some incredibly fan-servicey shots. I'm not going to be showing screenshots of those. They're fucking high schoolers. Chill.
Cute.
So we then actually get some insight into how Hope Peak Academy actually works, which is kind of what was being referenced earlier. The big thing is that, so basically it's kind of, Chisa's hey, where's everybody else? And gets told that those 5 are probably all that's showing up today, since classroom attendance is not actually mandatory in the main course at Hope Peak Academy. All that matters is being able to pass your practical exams, and since they all have super talents, they don't really need to study for those.
I'm going to go eat dinner. I'll be right back.
Alrighty. Seeing that none of the students seem to care about their classmates, Chisa decides that she's going to fix that and teach them about the joys of youth using her former super high school level housekeeper powers, apparently. Fuyuhiko says, "Fuck that noise," and Chisa pulls a knife on him. The gangster respects that energy and decides to go along with it. He actually is not intimidated at all, but is just kind of impressed that her immediate reaction was to fucking pull a knife and stab between his fingers into the desk.
My assumption as far as the teaching the class thing is that by being the, former ultimate housekeeper, she has some Mary Poppins level shit.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figure.
I can teach kids.
But yeah. No one else really raises all that much of an objection, and Sonia is actually very hyped up by Chisa's fires of youth shit, because Sonia's like that. So then we get into what sort of seems to be what a lot of the format of the Despair arc is going to be. Whereas Future arc is a much more sort of typical, straightforward story told in an episodic thing where we kind of go scene to scene and have a story gradually building over time. Despair arc, at least between the 2 episodes we've watched so far, seems to be designed more around sort of a collection of little vignettes with sort of slat cards between them to transition from scene to scene, just kind of showing the daily life of our characters and their school attendance and that kind of stuff, which again kind of makes sense since we do already know a fair amount about these characters and honestly already know a decent amount about how this story goes just based on stuff that was revealed in Danganronpa 2. It's not as important for them to focus too heavily on the story in Despair arc, since we can kind of fill in the gaps a little bit. But what we do is we sort of go off to gather the remaining classroom members. The first stop, the men's room, We get a Jurassic Park reference as the forceful shockwave of Nekomaru dropping a loaf first causes water in a bucket to ripple, and then eventually the walls to crack and dust clouds to blow out past everyone, while the wall behind the toilet he was on is just completely gone, and there's a trench through the forest behind the school. Say what you want, the man knows how to take a true proper shit.
So real quickly on the previous part with Fuyuhiko and Chisa with the knife, it should be noted that she not only puts the knife down and dares her to take a finger, she actually takes a swipe at the finger.
Yeah, she does actually slam the knife down. He pulls his hand away before she can, but she actually, not just the finger, she actually like slams the knife down across the table. She would have taken all of them.
Like, that was the point where she was a character I had barely any interest into. She is instantly my favorite character. I love that she did that. Yeah,
Chisa doesn't fuck around, and that's one of her defining character traits. Is like, she is goofy, yes, but when she says shit, she means it. But yeah, so we meet Nekomaru for the first time here, blowing out the back wall of the bathroom.
Which is also why I think that Hope's Peak Academy has a remedial
reserve course.
A reserve course that pays, like, out the nose to be here, just so they can afford to replace all the shit that's destroyed by the Ultimates.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that does take a fair amount of money, although I'm sure they have some sort of super high school level construction workers around somewhere. It is actually worth noting, I don't know if this ever actually comes up explicitly, what the various, like, divisions of Future Foundation do. But Great Gozu's division of Future Foundation is actually the one in charge of, like, infrastructure and construction. So it's a decent chance that if he's involved in that kind of stuff at this point, he may be helping out the school with that. He is a little bit older than the other characters, so Great Gozu has already graduated at the point Despair Arc is taking place, but he would still have ties to Hope's Peak Academy at that point, so he may very well have hookups for them for construction. So then, it's off to the cafeteria to pick up Teru Teru. Really, we could have skipped this stop and everybody would have been much better off for it.
If you saw how he acted in Danganronpa 2, it's exactly the same.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a particular perspective in this scene or if it's just like a slight difference in the art style between this game and the anime, but wow, does Teru Teru have some serious fucking yaoi hands in this series.
He also seems like bigger in this than he did in, just like physically in general larger than he seemed in Danganronpa 2.
Yes, but he remains a completely intolerable pervert. But Chisa has, is not putting up with any of that shit. Basically, the minute he says anything even remotely perverted, she strings him up to the fucking ceiling and all tied up, which of course he enjoys. And then she passes the ropes over to Nekomaru, who starts using Teru Teru as like a workout, like weight training thing, which Teru Teru also enjoys because he's an insufferable pervert.
There is no winning.
Akane is just busy being a goddamn animal and parkouring to the roof of the academy. But they use a Monster Hunter-ass meat spit being roasted by Teru Teru to draw her ass out. Chisa calls out Nekomaru to bring her down.
Yep. Like a Pokemon.
Soda still has his weird obsession with Sonia, who wants nothing to do with him. Chisa tries to cheer him up, but is also wearing a gas mask because apparently Soda has just never heard of soap.
It should be noted, this is the first time I've noticed that Soda's earrings are a Phillips head and flathead screw, respectively.
Yeah, that is something that is present in the character art in DR2, but it's a little bit lower resolution, so it's actually kind of harder to notice. But yeah, his earrings are absolutely a Phillips head and flathead screw. Gundam's animals
working on a giant engine, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's working on like a huge, like, I think
building a sized engine that he's inside of.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. We go to Gundam Tanaka, or Tanaka the Forbidden One. You cannot say that name right now. His animal shed looks like a giant evil temple out of a Dragon Quest game, and he continues to be the most Chunibyo motherfucker in existence.
he is 100% more than Gundam was in the game, and I am here for it, and that haircut that makes him look like a budget Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, his hair is different in this series. He's got more kind of a wave going on rather than like the spiked up kind of hair he had in DR2. I think the spiked up hair is somewhat of a remnant, actually, of his Ultimate Despair look, strangely, even though they are supposed to be sort of reverted to their school looks in the Neo world. But yeah, he has this sort of wavy hairstyle in the anime, and it's not bad. I actually do like it a bit more than the weird hair spike thing going on.
Yeah, no, yeah. I actually like this design for him more than I do the DR2 one.
Yeah. Ibuki has the goddamn Doof Warriors flamethrower electric guitar and is using it to barbecue food as everyone comes in, which, of course, you know, character trait-wise, like, Akane is drooling, Teru's horrified, all that kind of shit. Chisa manages to communicate with her on her level.
I disagree. Striking cool poses is helping.
This shot, I think, may legitimately be one of the funniest ones in the first episode. Just like Chisa pulls a fucking electric guitar out of nowhere. Peko Pekoyama didn't intend to actually cut class. She was just meditating in the dojo and basically lost track of time. Through conversation, it's basically implied that Chisa knows what Peko's actual job is, which is absolutely supposed to be a huge secret at this point. Nobody seems to particularly mind, although Fuyuhiko starts being like, "What? How do you know about?" and then like gets shut up.
Yeah. I was actually some more surprised that like Peko was off meditating than not in the room, because that's where, you know, Little Boy Gangster was.
Yeah, she was meditating.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, even if you think back to Danganronpa 2, she wasn't, like, by his side 100% of the time. She would go off and do her own thing, at least partially to sort of keep cover that she wasn't just his bodyguard. That being said, I feel like Peko probably has the pure confidence, like, she would have, like, the awareness, like, if something happened to him, she would know about it, and she would be able to get there in time to help, because that's just the character that Peko Pekoyama is.
I know, he almost got his fingers cut off moments before this, so...
She knew it wasn't going to happen. Also, let's be real here. As is revealed in this particular scene, if Chisa was going to do something, I don't think Peko would be able to stop her, seeing as Chisa basically got up within sword distance of Peko before Peko noticed her, and then a few seconds later took the shinai out of Peko's hands without Peko noticing. Which caused Peko
level shit.
Yeah, which caused Peko to be incredibly surprised.
Which actually is just more confusing that she's like this bullshit level talent thing, and she's the first one to die in whatever's happening in Future Arc.
I assure you that will get explained. We cut to Nagito Komieda, whose luck continues to work in its highly specific way, essentially being a zero-sum game where everyone around him has to suffer from bad luck for him to get good luck, in that a runaway truck rams into Soda, which then like goes off the road, flies through the air, and crashes into the vending machine Nagito is in front of, triggering a jackpot mechanic that gives him a like near infinite supply of Dr. Hopper.
Well, the important thing is that he put his money in and was like 1 yen short first.
Yeah, he kept trying to push
and
the
was
button
very
and nothing
upset
was coming
because
out.
He couldn't get the buttons wouldn't come out. Then he gets the jackpot.
Yep. So after this, they head back to the classroom, and you know, Chisa says there are only 2 more students to retrieve, but basically everyone is tired. No one really wants to keep walking around everywhere to get all these students. Chisa makes an agreement with them that she'll go get all the others, but everyone else needs to stay there and clean the classroom, because as she was inspecting it, she realized it was like super dusty and dirty, because since no one ever really attends class, no one ever really pays attention to the cleaning duty schedule, which is a thing in Japanese high schools, and therefore the classroom has become fucking filthy. They try to protest this, But when the super high school level housekeeper tells you to clean the classroom, you clean the fucking classroom. It is worth noting that at this point, due to his injuries, Soda here is wrapped up like that one villain from Rurouni Kenshin.
Just his mummy cosplay.
I would think it was like a mummy cosplay, except he specifically has like the little like headdress thing at the back, which is totally that dude from Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, Makoto Shishio.
Yeah, Shishio. Like, he is bandaged very specifically to look like Makoto Shishio. So they agree to clean the classroom, and Chisa heads off to retrieve the remaining students. We come to a dorm room with the name of Mitrai on the outside, who was that sleep-deprived division head from the Future arc. Inside, however, clearly not the same person we saw before. I don't know. This guy seems pretty sus to me.
A little.
I do like the subtle note that they include the question mark on the high school level animator thing. So, to clarify, like, they are going to continue to try to play this straight. This is very obviously the ultimate imposter from DR2, who does not actually have a real name, so they will just refer to him throughout this whole series as Ryota Mitrai, but he is very clearly not actually Ryota Mitrai. We then cut to a park, a ways away from Hope's Peak Academy, where a perfectly average boy is staring at the school.
Talentless loser who will probably never amount to anything.
Yeah, right. A girl is so engrossed in her handheld video game that she walks directly into him and doesn't even notice and just like keeps playing her game.
You do.
This is the real, actual, living Chiaki Nanami. This is sort of a not really shocking reveal, because they did kind of say this in DR2, but not like fully explicitly. But yeah, no, Chiaki Nanami was actually a real living person that was actually one of their classmates in the 77th class, not just something constructed for Neo World. And the mostly nondescript boy is, of course, Hajime Hinata, who at this time is a real reserve corps student, and this is the real, actual, normal, talentless Hajime Hinata. We, know a little bit about the reserve course from stuff that was brought up in the second game, but we will definitely learn more about the reserve course through the course of this Despair arc. And it's actually pretty interesting, all told. That being said, as we, he does say what we are all thinking as Chisa drags the ultimate imposter up, like all tied up, and then while talking with Nanami and Hajime, the imposter like runs off to try and get away because he doesn't want to go to class. And like Chisa chases after him, like throws a sword at him and shit, and Hajime basically says what we're all thinking. People in the main course are all a bunch of fucking weirdos.
You're not wrong.
Yep.
Chiaki then gives a really interesting speech in regards to talent, saying that like it doesn't make a difference whether you have a talent or not. So this is something that was touched on a little bit in the games. It never really got expanded too much on. But like particularly a big one was Leon from the first game. There's a whole thing where when you have a super high school level talent, you're kind of locked in. No one really expects anything from you or wants anything from you other than what your talent is. So you don't really have sort of much choice in what you do with your life. If you remember from the first game, Leon had a big deal. Like, we didn't get to see too much of it because he died pretty early on. But like his whole thing was he didn't really want to do baseball anymore. He was more interested in being in like a punk rock band and making it big as a rock star. But because he was a super high school level baseball player, that's all anyone ever really saw him as. And they mostly just viewed like the rock band thing as kind of a like, yeah, whatever, man, like do what you're gonna do. Meanwhile, if you're just like a normal person, you have more freedom because you can kind of choose what to focus on and you can work to develop your skills. And like, you may never be the best at something, but you at least have sort of more option in what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even go as far as to basically say outright, I can never be anything besides a gamer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the ironic focus on their talent leads to despair.
Kind
It's
of.
not that they focus on, well, maybe, but it's more the fact that because you have the talent, that's all you or anyone else, or that's all anyone else basically expects. It puts a huge amount of expectation on you, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
This
And
is
it ends up defining who you are, whether you want to or not.
This is also something that kind of interestingly comes up in that scrapped ending for Danganronpa 1, the ending that was originally only supposed to be available on a New Game Plus, but never actually got fully written out. The only remnant of it that's left is when you find like the escape hatch button and press it, you get the little image of the door opening with everyone in front of it. The idea behind that particular ending, which we talked about a bit back when we were playing through Danganronpa 1, was that they could all leave immediately by using that escape hatch button, but they basically had to give up their super high school level talent to do it. They could never use their talent again. They would have to, do something else with it. And what we actually end up getting, interestingly, from that is they basically all agree to do it and they leave. And they all actually end up doing something else from their high school level talent, but they're all happy. They all, actually get to sort of choose what they do now, and they're not super successful at it. Like Asahina opens a donut shop, which is decently popular, but it's not like, she makes millions of yen off of it or anything. Leon, does go to form his rock band, and they have a decent following, but they're never like a huge, they're never headlining shows or anything, but they make a living doing it. But the point is that they all end up happy, even though they're not using their talents. And it's sort of an interesting theme that gets a little bit buried in these games, but it does come up occasionally.
It's partly because that ending also just doesn't work with the universe they built.
Yeah. So then we head back to the classroom, and this screenshot I took, one, because it's just kind of funny seeing everybody in the classroom, and you get various things like Miyoto's, Pinocchio face over there, and like Hiyoko face down at her desk, shit like that. But also because I wanted to point out a really interesting little visual note, in that the teacher's lecterns and railing here are designed exactly like the lectern and railings we see in the trial rooms in the games. It's just a little like interesting design aspect to kind of fill in those gaps of like, oh, well, like, where did this like trial room at Hope's Peak Academy come from? And you can kind of see like it could easily be purposed, like, oh, they just sort of repurposed stuff from around the school rather than custom making everything for it.
Not there wasn't a lot of custom work going on.
I mean, there was, but it's still like it's an interesting choice to kind of have a lot of the design elements harken to stuff we've seen in the games, just so we have some like connection there, and kind of like it doesn't feel like this is an entirely different place than the Hope's Peak Academy we see in Danganronpa 1. So we get in the background music of this scene, we actually get the faintest hint of the daily life theme, as Chisa basically establishes the new order. Even though the school may say you don't have to come to class, Teacher Chisa says your ass is going to be here and you're going to make friends with your classmates, because this is the fires of youth and you need to like accept it. Meanwhile, Kyosuke is elsewhere, and he is either building a school or the world's most ambitious dildo. We've seen the future arc. We know what his design sensibilities are like.
It is important to note that while in the future arc they're in a Future Foundation like facility, this was originally intended as an overseas Hope's Peak Academy.
Yeah, it was intended to be an expansion of Hope's Peak overseas, that obviously never fully came to fruition because, as we know, the humongo tragedy occurred. But this building was basically already being constructed at the time, and so it ended up becoming a Future Foundation headquarters. He has like a little discussion with Chisa, sort of about like, hey, how things are going there, and like, oh, well, it's going all right, blah, blah, blah. And then post-credits, we see ominous, shadowy men around a table looking at Hajime Hanada's student file. We then head into Future Arc Episode 2. So this episode opens, the cold open that we will manage to make our way back to, is Kyosuke telling Naegi that he should kill himself if he really believes in hope and wants a world of peace, which seems like a totally rational thing that a good person would absolutely say.
We're going to see that Kyosuke ends up doing a lot of totally rational things that not crazy people would say.
We are absolutely the good guys, Shiv. We are doing this for hope.
It doesn't matter what the cost is. Kill yourself.
Yeah. So one thing that is interesting. So the intro. There's a couple little interesting things about the intro. First off, as you may have noticed when I was showing the little character images from the intro from the first episode, there's sort of a weird colorization and grain effect on them. That actually isn't present in the intro to the second episode. I don't know if there's any actual significance to that, or if it's just a weird stylistic choice they chose. But the other thing that's interesting is there's a little bit in the intro where we see this little counter, and this does actually tick down as people die. So in the first episode, this actually said remaining survivors 16 people, and now that Chisa has died, it says 15.
It's a neat touch.
Yeah, so it will update as people die. So we come back from the intro and get informed of the rules of this killing game. Here in the anime, this killing game ends up labeled as Monokuma Hunter. That is what they are calling it. Realistically, it's like Mafia or One Night Ultimate Werewolf, but we'll get to that in a second. The terminology thing I brought up earlier is that generally this is referred to as the final killing game, again, because it's the sort of final ultimate showdown between Naegi and Monokuma. So if you ever see people talking in Danganronpa terms about the final killing game, they're talking about the events of Future Arc here, even though within the series it's referred to as Monokuma Hunter. So the rules that we get are as follows. So everybody has their bracelet on with a countdown timer on it. When that timer runs out, everyone gets injected with a sleeping drug and gets put to sleep. There is one person among them who is the attacker. They will get woken up and be given a time limit during which they have to kill exactly one person. Basically, the game is for everyone to figure out who the attacker is and stop them so that they can't kill anybody during the next sleeping phase. If the time limit passes and everybody wakes up and nobody has been killed, everybody wins, and the game is over, and they all get to go free. That being said, the final rule of the game is that everyone has an action which they can see on their bracelet. The subs translate this directly as forbidden action, even though it's called an NG code, and they very clearly say the words NG code. I'm not really sure why this was translated that way. But if they perform the forbidden action on their bracelet, they'll be injected with lethal poison and die. Likewise, if they try to tamper with or remove their bracelet, they'll also be injected with this lethal poison and die.
Well, no, it's very Nonary Games-esque.
Yeah, yes. There's definitely some Nonary Games influence here. It is at this point I will reiterate a thing that was brought up, I believe, in both Virtue's Last Reward and Zero Time Dilemma. The authors of Danganronpa and the author of the Nonary games they are actually friends, and they have worked together even. They know each other, they're friends. So them being sort of influenced by each other when they are making genre related, they're not, Danganronpa and the Nonary games are not that similar, other than the very base elements of there's a killing game and this, that, and the other. But being influenced by each other and thinking that one of them had a cool idea, so I'm gonna adapt that idea into sort of my story, is not that surprising.
It wasn't the next game that they're doing actually them making a similar type of game together?
Yes, they are currently, I don't think it's come out yet, but they are currently working on a game together, and I'm honestly absolutely 100% here for it.
Yeah.
So that's it. Those are the 3 rules of the game. That's all there is. There is certainly nothing else about this game.
In other words,
whatsoever.
Certainly nothing else, which means, of course, there's something else. There's
always something else.
Danganronpa. Yes.
Kyoko looks at her bracelet and makes this face. So obviously her and G-code is something really fucked up. And in the background, you can see Mask Lady also looking extremely worried while looking at her bracelet. So the both of them clearly have some truly fucked up NG codes. Monokuma continues talking about this and basically says that this killing game is being broadcast to the entire world, much like the events of the first Danganronpa were, to demoralize the people, basically by showing them that the Future Foundation, who are currently sort of the hope of the world to stand against ultimate despair, are going to be here killing each other off. At this point, Gecko Gahara comes forward. She is actually bound in a wheelchair, so she doesn't actually walk, and there's a screen on it. She communicates through her Usami avatar. It is revealed that Gecko Gahara is one of the people that is responsible for coding the Neo World program that was used in Danganronpa 2, and is also brought up that she is super shy and only communicates through her computer. I'm sure this will not in any way be a plot point.
I assume almost everything that happens in this game is going to be a plot point.
Yeah. She demands to know who's controlling Monokuma, since all of them do know that Junko Enoshima is dead. Like, that was never in dispute. Even when Sakakura earlier was accusing Naegi of, like, actually being in league with Ultimate Despair and, like, working with them, they still acknowledge that Junko died. It's just a matter of, like, was that part of a plan on the part of Ultimate Despair or not? Monokuma pretty much immediately hacks Gecko Gahara's computer, basically because he's like, "Who are you? I don't recognize you," talking about Usami, and so immediately hacks her and turns her back into Monomi.
Because of course he does.
Which greatly upsets Usami / Gecko Gahara, who immediately starts working to try and like undo the hacking and get Usami back to normal. It is that point that is revealed, because Gecko Gahara is basically trying to like reach the internet or whatever, but all contact with the outside world has been cut off. And when Asahina basically makes a snide comment about how shitty the computer security here is, Gecko Gahara basically says this facility was super well defended from external attack. They never expected somebody to get inside and be hacking with them, which pretty much is how they sort of come to the determination that, like, okay, no, there actually is a traitor among us. Somebody in here had to get Monokuma, like, onto our system. So it's not just him, like, trying to sow suspicion, so they'll all start being suspicious when there's not actually a traitor. Sakakura continues to be a complete and utter fucking idiot, and immediately assumes that Naegi is the traitor, based on some evidence somewhere. I'm sure he totally has.
I would like to note that they said that they are perfectly prepared for attacks outside. However, an external attack still destroyed all the exits and covered up every single window.
Yep.
I did interpret that line being as more about cyber attacks, because it was talking specifically about Monomi being hacked.
Oh, that's right. They were hoping that the building just not being on maps was going to keep it from being attacked.
Basically.
Yes.
Yes.
The line specifically was our systems were designed to be defended from the outside.
Yeah, they're specifically talking about like hacking and shit. They're not necessarily talking about like having missiles fired at them from fucking helicopters.
Like, all it takes is one Future Foundation member to open the wrong email, and we all know how that goes.
So like basically like Sakakura, name is weird for me to say. Sakakura basically starts trying to like beat up Naegi again. Asahina basically steps up and is like, "Hey, knock that the fuck off! Like, what's wrong with you?" At which point Sakakura makes like a threatening, starts making threatening movement towards Asahina as well. Mitrai basically steps in and tries to be like, "Hey, like, chill out, dude. Like, let's not start being, throwing, violence against women. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?" Which causes Sakakura to knee Mitrai in the gut.
He's a totally good guy.
Yeah, unfortunately, Bandai's NG code was witnessing violence between participants, and he's gone. They realize at this point that they essentially have no choice but to play the game, So Kyosuke says they should all at the same time point at who they think the attacker is. About half of the people present point at Naegi, and this brings us back to where we came in with Kyosuke telling Naegi to kill himself.
The one interesting thing that I found that I'm curious to see where it goes in the future, Riverboat Gambler points at Gekogahara.
Yeah,
It
it's not
says he just has a
unanimous.
feeling.
Yeah, it is
They
not
specifically,
unanimous.
like... Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to say, there's two things of note about this. One, Great Gozu actually refuses to point at anybody. It's not a thing they, like, explicitly point out, but if you see him in the background, and he actually has his, just, like, arms crossed across his chest, he refuses to point at anybody, which we'll sort of tie into later as we learn a little bit more about his character. And the funny thing about Kiyokura pointing at Gekogahara, I'm not entirely sure if he was trying to implicate Gekogahara or if he was actually trying to implicate Usami. It's not entirely clear, and I think he's just being a dipshit, honestly. So
100% correct.
yeah, pretty much. So basically, Kyosuke basically says, like, well, Naegi, it looks like most people here think you're the traitor and you're going to be the attacker. So, if you really are devoted to hope and peace, you should kill yourself now because everybody suspects you. Which, like, doesn't make any fucking sense.
They even go to the fact, so what if someone then gets killed? Well, then we'll vote again.
Yeah, the point is, like, what if Naegi's not the attacker? To which the reply from Kyosuke is literally, then we'll vote again and we'll keep doing it until people stop dying. Once again, Kyosuke's reasoning and sheer good guyness is absolutely staggering. Clearly, the ability...
There's a 3% chance you might be despair. So kill yourself for the good of it.
His argument is like, the cost, no matter what the cost is, it's acceptable to deal with despair. It's still dumb as shit.
It is still dumb as shit, though I will like to point out he is specifically playing by the rules of werewolf. Strangely. Because you are actually supposed to vote on someone to kill and hope that they were the werewolf.
Yeah.
Or Mafia. It's the same game. Literally.
I mean, technically speaking, though, this isn't like werewolf, in which case you kill one person, then you have to wait for night. They could just kill a dozen people right now if they wanted to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. I point out they specifically playing by the rules of the game. This is inspired on not necessarily by the rules of the game that they are actually playing. Also, It's dumb as shit still. But
yeah.
Do
So
you think the Future Foundation just had a weekly game night where they played games like Werewolf or Among Us to practice for situations like this?
No,
To be fair,
they'd be
this is
better at it if
Monokuma's
they had.
yeah.
So, like, Naegi, obviously, is, like, hesitant to fucking kill himself, and it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you all? I'm not the traitor. You all fucking saw what happened at Hope's Peak Academy. Like, I was the one trying my hardest to keep anyone from dying. Like, fuck off with this shit. Sakakura, again proving himself to be king shit of Asshole Mountain, decides to just rush Naegi with a knife. Great Gozu's having officially none of that bullshit.
He catches a knife with his bare hand.
Catches a knife with his bare hand and then snaps it like it was fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Basically is like, knock it the fuck off. Kyoko, Asahina, and Naegi all make their escape from the room under cover of a smoke screen from a fire extinguisher, which Kyoko had noticed earlier. And they are aided by Gozu blocking the door physically with his body as they run past him. And Gekogahara tases the shit out of Sakakura with taser bolts fired from her wheelchair. I think she should have aimed for his nutsack, personally, but...
I do like that she has a weaponized wheelchair, though. Good shit.
Yes.
They've been fighting the ultimate despair. It makes sense.
Yeah, she absolutely has a weaponized wheelchair. This will come up more as things go on. So as they're heading down the hallway, like, Asahina is trying to charge ahead. Kyoko got separated from them. We'll see that in a little bit here. But Asahina is, like, trying to take off down the hallways, and Naegi is lagging behind. She basically tells him, like, hey, like, we gotta get moving. They're still chasing us. And at that point, it's revealed that Naegi's NG code is running in the hallway, which, is definitely a significant detriment when people want you dead and you're trying to escape from them. Asahina solves this issue in the most Asahina way possible. Literally just picking Naegi's ass up in a piggyback and bolting down the fucking hallway. Meanwhile, we cut over to Kyoko, who's like in a room hiding behind like a table. She reaches over to a piece of fallen rubble, showing it's very clear that Kyoko is fully ready to brain some motherfuckers with a big-ass rock. But Tengen, the old man, basically kind of stops her and explains that like violence is only capable of creating despair. I honestly feel like this probably would have had significantly more impact if he said this 5 fucking minutes ago when Sakakura tried to shank Naegi, but...
Or when they were voting to make someone kill themselves.
Yeah.
So we cut back to, Asahina and Naegi kind of stopping at the end of a hallway to, take a break, catch a breather. Great Gozu and Kyosuke show up in dramatic fashion, i.e., like, falling through the ceiling. And they...
Smashing through a wall.
Smashing through a wall, that's right. Yeah, there's a lot of dust and Gozu's
Give it a moment.
Yeah. They continue They continue their fight. Kyosuke using his weird, like, unfolding katana, and Gozu picking up a piece of rebar with some wall on the end of it to use like a makeshift sledgehammer. Gozu at this point declares that he refuses to kill anybody, even if it costs him his own life. Whereas Kyosuke counters with, he'll kill everybody if that's the only way to be sure he's killed all the despairs. I'm sure both of these stances are equally moral. Gekogahara kind of comes out from a side hallway, and like kind of directs them, directs Asahina to pick up a fire extinguisher. She tries to blast it to create another smoke screen, but it seems to not be working. So she resorts to fucking hucking it at Kyosuke, which honestly I admire the intention. He knocks it out of the way with his sword, which separates him from Gozu long enough for Gozu to elbow drop through the floor, creating a huge hole. It was noted earlier that the floors are kind of cracked and weakened. So he does elbow drop through the floor, creating a hole which he and Naegi can use to escape through. Kyosuke gives chase, but they run through a doorway. Kyosuke hucks his katana at them, and it sticks in the door. But he does not make any move to actually follow through the doorway while staring at his bracelet, which seems to imply that something about his NG code is related to doors. We then cut to Izuyoi and Ruruka, the Vash the Stampede and the Candy Girl, walking down a corridor discussing about the traitor. They actually both suspect Kimura, giving a line of, one who has betrayed before will do so again. My notes here say, I'm sure this is all very interesting character building, but I still don't like basically any of these characters, so I don't care if they get killed. They've already killed off one of the 2 new characters I actually liked, so they're treading on thin ice here. We go back to Gozu, Gekogahara, Asahina, and Naegi. They've essentially barricaded themselves in a room as the timer is about to end, and they're going to fall asleep. Asahina is having a rough time being stuck in another killing game. It's understandably pretty psychologically taxing on her, and she's like really upset by it. Saying like this is just like the last time, to which Naegi, ever looking on the bright side and being the optimist, says no, it's not like the last time. There's Yumi and Kyoko, we all know we can trust each other. It's not like last time where we didn't know each other and didn't know who we could trust. Which is super cool. And like Gozu comes up and is like super inspired by this and is a super big fan of Naegi's optimism, and has been ever since he watched the events of the first Danganronpa game as they were being broadcast. Just makes a really big thing about like, I really like you. I think you're, you really display sort of the pinnacle of hope.
So before you cut to what I'm assuming is going to be the next slide, he also promises her that, nothing bad will happen to you.
That comes a little bit later, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because before that happens, we actually cut back to Sakakura and Kyosuke talking about shit. in the room where the
Oh,
katana
right,
is still
yeah.
stuck in the door. And they fully reaffirm their solid, we're totally good guys status in a conversation where they go over once again that they will kill anyone and everyone for the sake of the Future Foundation, just as long as Kiyosaki survives, because Future Foundation can always come back as long as he exists. And this is absolutely the kind of conversation really good people would have, and I'm sure has happened at all sorts of charitable organizations that do good work around the world. I am certain this has happened between the leader of Doctors Without Borders and one of his underlings.
Yep.
This is
Then
the
again,
point.
how many of them have been put in Killing Game?
This is honestly the point in my notes where I'm just like, man, this series has been lacking subtlety in the past, but this is ham-fisted even for Danganronpa.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's ham-fisted. I think it's more like full beef-fisted. Two cows for fists.
The worst part is, I'm fairly certain that these two dickbags aren't. Neither one of them is the traitor.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Just appear my stance is so outrageously dumb.
Yeah, no, I am
Even though I'm
100%.
theoretically a good guy. I'm gonna kill everyone in my way.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure 100% that Kyosuke is effectively a red herring to make you think oh no, he's the one doing this. He's in charge of the killing game. But no, I'm sure he's not. But we're still gonna get to the end of this and be like,
imposter.
yeah, it's just
And Takakura would be very boring in charge of the killing game, so he's very unlikely as well.
yeah, it's just very much a matter of we're gonna get to the end of the series and we're gonna be like, see, Kyosuke wasn't in charge of it all along, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, but he's still a fucking bad dude.
It's but his plan was still just start murking people except me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, that makes it worse.
So we go back into the room where Naegi and the others are barricaded. There's about 5 seconds left before they, pass out from the drugs. And Naegi reassures Asahina that, he has super high school level good luck, and, I'm sure everything will turn out, perfectly fine for us. It does not.
There we go.
It should also be noted he has super high school level luck, not good luck.
It is technically good luck-ish.
Very ish.
His luck, as we have established previously, works in an incredibly Rube Goldberg-like way where eventually things work out for him, as opposed to Nagito's, which is a zero-sum in that essentially it works on the principle that there is a finite amount of luck in the universe, and it either takes luck away from Nagito to give to others, or takes luck away from others to give to Nagito. One or the other.
And look, he's lucky. He could have been the one to get stabbed in the chest.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, that's all strawberry jam, so we're fine.
I mean, let's be fair. She was super stressed out about being part of another death game. She's no longer part of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the end of Future Arc Episode 2, which leads us then into Despair Arc Episode 2. So this episode opens up on Chisa marking off a calendar. Kizakoda asks what the calendar is about, and she explains that each circle on the calendar is a day with full class attendance, letting us know that it's been essentially about 2 weeks since the first episode, and she's been, having all the kids come to class every day in that time. The world's worst baseball reporter has to go out scouting, providing a convenient excuse to continue dumping his work on Chisa. He talks about it. He's going to go scout a girl undefeated in the underground gambling world, which is obviously Celestia from the first game. So again, we'll get, I'm sure, many of those references as we go through the Despair arc to characters being recruited for the 78th class. After the intro, Chisa rushes to the classroom, which is only about 3/4 destroyed at this point due to a match between Akane and Nekomaru. Teruteru offers a drug/soup. He worked with the hold on a second, let me see what I've got here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry, I'm just continually checking to make sure when I'm supposed to go to the next slide. So Teruteru offers Akane this soup he developed with the super high school level pharmacist, which you'll recall is the masked chick in Future Arc.
Yeah, Sega Komura.
Yeah. And Akane grabs it from him and downs it before he's even done explaining it. The results are astounding. Akane essentially goes Kaioken times 10, but even super doped up, Akane can only fight on even terms with Nekomaru. This is, of course, to be expected, since obviously the Super High School level coach would rise to match the abilities of his athlete, as we discussed in Danganronpa 2.
He's kind of a weird reverse sportsman.
Yeah, Sportsmaster.
Or Sportsmaster, yeah.
Yes. Chiaki... Go ahead.
Like I say, for me, it was less Super Saiyan, far more Gon from Hunter x Hunter. Like, so much that the hair standing straight up far longer than is like direct reference.
Her hair never stood straight up. It was behind her.
Regardless, power.
It was never the idiot spiral. She was also glowing red. Yeah, so Chiaki steps outside to get away from sort of the noise and violence and finds Mitrai out in the hallway. We had actually seen him walking away in the earlier scene with like art easel and stuff. And she basically complains that there's no sort of camaraderie or anything among the class. Like, yeah, even though they're all coming to class, it doesn't feel like there's anything going on that's really like a class. It's more like a bunch of individual people just happening to be in the same room. And this kind of goes again into that sort of background theming that it seems like Despair Arc may be bringing a little bit more to the foreground, where Mitrai basically kind of says, well, yeah, I mean, you know, we all have our talent. We don't really have to rely on other people to sort of help make it in the world. You know, we've all got our own thing, and we don't really need any other people or any friends to really, you know, make do. So why would we waste time on it? Chisa, being summoned by people talking shit about friendship, immediately shows up to cheer up Chiaki, who is feeling kind of down about Mitrai saying this, and kind of points out, like, because like Chiaki basically delivers a line like, you know, I will never make friends with my video games. And Chisa is like, that's nonsense. If games are fun to play on your own, then obviously they're, you know, fun to play with other people. Chisa has very clearly never played Dokapon Kingdom.
Oh, God.
So we then cut back to Kiyosaki and his ongoing erection.
Ha ha!
Double entendre. Chisa is on a call with him and basically reports that the reserve course is being used to gather funding of some sort. They kind of discuss that the board of trustees seem to be up to something and they need a lot of funding to do it, but they're really not sure what. Meanwhile, it comes out that Kiyosaki and Chisa sort of have their own plans for the direction of Hope's Peak Academy. We're not sure what this is at this point, but given what we've seen of how Kiyosaki behaves in the future arc, I'm sure it involves killing anyone who doesn't have talent.
I don't think he's at kill everyone point yet, but he may be.
Use the talentless as furniture.
Yeah, right. So at this point, go ahead.
I'd like to pause for a side and just comment on exactly how ridiculous that like grating around the building they're making is.
Oh yeah, that scaffolding, that is way too much fucking scaffolding for any actual building construction.
Yeah.
Hey, when Hope's Peak
Especially
Academy
since
they go hard.
Especially since it's like this is. It looks like a good portion of this is complete as well. So what the fuck?
Yeah, no, the ongoing construction of Hope's Peak overseas is going to be ludicrous to look at anytime it comes up. So yeah, at this point, like, Chisa was having this conversation with Kiyosaki while she was out in the hallway. The conversation finishes, and Maharu actually shows up on her way to go have lunch with a friend of hers that's in the reserve course. This is a friend that she had from back in middle school. I'm certain there will be absolutely no tragic events involving this friend anytime in the near future.
Certainly won't make a game about it.
Meanwhile, Hajime is just sort of peacefully spending his lunch break, chilling out on a decent bench out in like a little park near a fountain.
The same place we saw him last
Yeah, the same place we saw him last time, where he was like staring at the school and thinking about shit. Chisa comes up to shatter his peace, basically telling him it sucks ass to spend his break alone, which, honestly, kind of fuck you. If I'm being honest, I think what he was doing seems like a pretty great way to spend a lunch break. It's at least preferable to having your ass grilled by a teacher about the reserve course for no fucking reason. Which is kind of what she's there to do. She asks him a little bit about the reserve course. He doesn't really tell her a lot about the reserve course per se. He just kind of says, like, it's the reserve course. Like, the fuck do you want to know? But we do get, again, a little bit of Hajime's backstory that we got in Danganronpa 2, where just, like, the whole thing about, like, he sort of always idolized Hope's Peak Academy, and, like, you know, it was always his dream to attend, but he never really had any talent. So it was sort of a dream for him when the reserve course, you know, was created, and like it gave him the opportunity to like be able to actually attend Hope's Peak Academy, even if he wasn't going to be part of the main course. But like it seems like yeah, but it seems like he's feeling sort of hesitant about something. And she kind of asks if there's like, oh, is there like some sort of like option available for you to make it into the main course? And he sort of hems and haws, but basically says like, no, not really. And then she's like, oh, well, I have to get going. And she leaves. At which point, the old man actually comes up to talk with Hajime. Yeah. So it's revealed that at this time, the old man is some sort of advisor to Hope's Peak Academy and might have some sort of ties to the Board of Trustees. He might be a member of it. He might just be involved with the Academy somehow. But he has a talk with Hajime, and it's obvious that Hajime knows him because he does call him by name. And they have a little bit of a talk. It's revealed that there's some sort of deadline coming up for a project, but Hajime hasn't made up his mind yet. The old man doesn't necessarily really agree with the project, but also doesn't necessarily think it's a bad thing. He's kind of ambivalent about it. Since we've already played through Danganronpa 2, we do already know what this project is. We don't know all the specifics of sort of how it came about and what it was, but we do know at least what the end result was.
I thought the series already addressed who the old man was.
It does. Well, he's the foundation. He's the chairman of the Future Foundation, but like the Future Foundation doesn't exist at this point.
Yeah, they haven't revealed what his deal is apart from being an advisor in some capacity in the Despair arc.
They may have said
in the Hopes or in the Future arc, he is listed as former director of Hope's Peak High School.
Okay, yeah, that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, I'm pretty sure he's a former director. I'm pretty sure they called that out. I just pulled the episode back up to check it.
Okay.
Yeah, so he is. I did know that's who he was, but like, yeah. So it's at this point, Tengon basically kind of says, like, listen, Hajime, like, honestly, I don't necessarily think you should go through with this. Like, this is again kind of touching on that theme, where he basically says, like, listen, like, you know, there's nothing wrong with you, you know, going back to a normal high school and like living a normal life. You know, you shouldn't fear normalcy. Basically just saying, like, you know, not having a talent is perfectly just as valid a life as having a talent. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a normal person. So meanwhile, Chisa returns to the classroom and finds that Chiaki has taken her words to heart. She is currently hosting the best-smelling Smash tournament in history among the classmates, since only one of the participants doesn't believe in the concept of showers. We then get sort of a chain of video game XPs, obviously starting with the Smash Brothers thing. We then get an Itadaki Street game. And then a Mario Kart. And a Bomberman clone. These are all being played by sort of different combinations of the classmates, including Chisa taking part in one of them. They are all sort of bonding through this, and then at a certain point, Teruteru shows up with some food, because like basically they had realized that while they were like cleaning, they hadn't actually eaten anything, and like they were starting to get hungry. And Chiaki had actually asked Teruteru to go make some food for the class, because she revealed, like, yeah, sometimes when I get into gaming too much, I basically like forget to eat. and this is not a good thing. And like I wanted to make sure that we all, were being taken care of and that we were doing good and everything was good. So they all sit down to eat this like pretty decent looking beef stew, actually.
Taro knows how to make good food.
Yeah. I mean, he gets overly pompous about trying to explain what it is, but it's basically just like a very fancy beef stew. They all
knew that about him anyways.
Yeah.
Being from the country, he wants to be more like from the big city. So yeah, that fits perfectly in character.
Yeah. The actual artwork of the beef stew in this is not quite on like insane food porn levels, but still like a lot of detail actually went into drawing the big pot of beef stew. So they all sort of gather around and get their portions of stew, and they take an opportunity to, have their lunches. They do take a quick opportunity for a Food Wars joke where Chiaki takes a bite of it, and like the background turns golden, and then there's like sparkles around her, and it looks like she's about to go like super insane, and then it just cuts back to her normal, and she's like, "It's okay." We get lines. We get lines from a bunch of different characters about how good the soup is. And then, I'm not going to show screenshots of what happens next, because, again, they're fucking high schoolers. But suffice to say that the super high school level gremlin, that is Hiyoko, dosed the big soup pot with one of Teru's prepared soups that was a super aphrodisiac.
Granted, she didn't know it was a super aphrodisiac when she used it. She just figured it'd be funny to pour one of these random vials into the soup.
Yeah. So all the characters basically are getting like super horny and like starting to like be weird about stuff. And Hiyoko did not eat any of, in her words, that nasty looking beef stew. So she's not affected by it, but everybody else is. And they're starting to kind of like writhe on the ground or like rub up on each other or stuff or whatever. And Teru, being closest to Hiyoko, starts trying to go after her, and like Hiyoko backs up against the wall, and she's like trying to like be like, "Oh no, like you can't, like I'll let you lick my shoes," and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna aim higher," and then he gets what he deserves.
I've been playing Dragon Fist.
Chiaki, even though she is also under the effects of this soup, steps in and uppercuts Teru across the fucking room. Like,
yeah, the screenshot doesn't do it justice. He goes flying. That's why the screenshot is like to the right, because he just flies the entire screen.
Yeah, he ends up on the far left of this panel.
Yeah, you can kind of see it from the squash on his head, exactly how much force they're trying to convey on that punch.
Look, she just wanted to protect her classmate.
Yeah, she basically declares, like, keep your hands off my classmate, to which somebody does immediately reply, yeah, but the one you uppercutted was also your classmate. Which, I mean, he deserved it, but it's still a very funny thing to point out.
It comes up twice, and I love it each time.
Yeah, and then, because of all the effort it took to actually do that, Chiaki basically passes out. We then cut over to the like nurse's office where some of the girls are around Chiaki, like, watching her as she wakes up, and they're basically like, oh, that was like super cool when you did that, and like you were like, keep your hands off my classmate and blah blah, and like that was a really like cool uppercut you did, and Chiaki was like, yeah, it's a move that has a great deal of like importance to me, and like, Chisa is also there, and she's like, oh, did you learn it from somebody important or blah, blah, blah? And she's like, well, no. There was this time where there was a bad guy named Willie who would just, like, do crazy shit and fire his machine gun all over the place. And he, kidnapped this girl off the street, and I, had to go through all these trials and travails on my way to saving her. And, yeah, literally she learned the move from Double Dragon 2.
Yep.
So this is like, and during this speech is again where it comes up that like when somebody was like, yeah, it was really cool when you were like, keep your hands off my classmate, and one of the other girls immediately goes, yeah, but who she punched was also her classmate. Yeah, so Chiaki learned the move from Double Dragon 2, but was able to execute it, which is interesting because I've played a lot of fighting games, and I'll tell you right now, I can't do any of that shit.
You're not the ultimate gamer.
And dragon punches aren't hard.
Dragon punching a human being hard enough to send them flying like 6 feet is.
Taro is a cartoon character of a human being.
Fair enough. So we end up back in the classroom, and it was brought up sort of earlier in the episode at the very beginning that Chisa had mentioned something along the lines of like, yeah, I feel like we should probably choose a class rep soon. And Chisa, not taking votes or volunteers for it, has unanimously decided that Chiaki should be the class rep, because she showed a lot of concern about making sure that all of her, classmates were brought together and could, enjoy their class life together. And making them a whole class rather than just a bunch of individuals. And also that she showed care and concern for her classmates other than Teru, who she probably knocked a few teeth out of.
Deservedly.
Nagito gets creepy about this.
Still staring at that hand.
So Nagito gets Nagito about this.
Yep.
Yeah, so it is worth noting that Nagito was not necessarily all that creepy for the little bit we saw him in the first episode, right up until they made it back to the class, and Chisa started talking about hope and this, that, and the other, and that's when, Nagito was like, oh, hope, huh. And that sort of started him on the path to becoming the Nagito we've seen in previous entries.
But that wouldn't necessarily make sense for 2?
Yeah. It's a matter of... Because we know that in 2, when they're brought into Neo World, it is... they're set back to how they were before they became Ultimate Despair. And, their memories of the school are erased. But we don't necessarily know exactly where the data about their personalities come from, and whether or not it's from, the beginning of their school year, or, what's going on exactly.
Granted on that a little bit. I'm just going to assume Nagito was fucked up from the beginning.
Yeah, entirely possible. We'll get into that much later on, because right before we watch the final episode of this series, we'll be watching the Nagito Kamieta OVA, which is a thing. So eventually, originally Chiaki is resistant to the idea of becoming a class rep. She doesn't really want to do it. But basically everybody kind of is like, yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, that'd be really cool. We really respect, you, blah, blah, blah. And so she agrees to do it. And the last scene of the main episode is Chiaki leaving school at the end of the day, or she's waiting at the front gate at the end of the school day for Hajime, who she wants to take to a game center so they can play a new fighting game that just came out, because she, has realized that it's really fun to play games with other people. And this is also sort of the start of the friendship between Chiaki and Hajime. They had a little bit of a chat in the first episode when they met by the fountain about video games, but didn't really, the chat was more about the whole, talent thing. But this is where they really start becoming sort of friends. We get the closing credits, and then, post-credits, we get introduced to the new transfer student to the reserve course, Natsumi Kuzuryu, Fuyuhiko's sister. She seems nice. I'm sure this can only end well.
Too bad she's gonna die soon.
And the last image we get of the whole episode is this black screen with plain white text saying beginning of the twilight, which is a rather chilling statement considering what we know happens and what the particular game about those events is called.
Yeah, it's almost certainly a direct reference to Twilight Syndrome murder case.
So with that, that covers the first 2 episodes of both the Future Arc and Despair Arc. Take a little bit of time here. General thoughts so far on the series? Anyone have anything to sort of talk about in that regard?
Yes. So the first episode of the Despair Arc, effectively the Gathering the Cast, I could almost re-subtitle All Aboard the Hindenburg, because we know exactly where this is going. As a general rule, I don't terribly like prequel arcs of any sort or capacity. However, this is kind of giving me, at the very least with these first 2 episodes, one thing I actually do kind of want, which is more slice of life stuff of these characters. As a matter of fact, if we threw out everything else they actually have to do, this would almost make this a better series in general. Unfortunately, that's not really that's not really the premise of the Despair arc.
Yeah, you're looking for the daily life side games.
I mean, I will say this much: a fair amount of Despair arc is actually just kind of slice of life with these characters as events build that they're not directly involved in. I mean, obviously, we sort of know what the end result of the Despair arc is going to be, but until we get there, most of the Despair arc is actually just Chisa teaching them as a class and then becoming like closer friends and like essentially developing the relationships between them that made the events that led to the tragedy actually like send them into ultimate despair.
Now, as for the future arc, as I think we've already commented, a lot of the characters be dumb. Just in how they approach everything, but it's kind of at the same time expected from Ultimates in this series.
I was going to say,
a general thing of characters in Danganronpa tend to be fairly extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we kind of saw in Despair Girls, a lot of like the more sane, level-headed people just died off during the terrible, awful, no good, very bad day.
The crappening.
Yes,
yeah,
the crappening.
So you end up with extremes in personality left because most of the people who have talent or otherwise had the ability to survive that day were all weirdos in some form or another.
They either have talent or were awful people, or I think that was actually it.
Yeah, with the exception of Naegi's little sister.
Yes.
And to that, like, this is our first glimpse of seeing the Future Foundation. Like, we hear about the Future Foundation a lot, and like I mentioned in the beginning, we don't really know any of the people involved in the Future Foundation before this, apart from our cast from
previous characters.
Danganronpa 1. So, I'm starting to think that they never told anybody about what happened in Ultra Despair Girls, because there's no way that this group of absolute lunatics would have let a city stand that wasn't like that had even a scrap of despair left in it.
There's levels to it. So like Kiyosaki is very much in the sense of like, we need to wipe out despair completely at no matter the cost. And while it is implied that Tengan used to be that way, it also is very clear that his stance has changed a bit over time. So it's kind of really just a question of when it was that Tengan's stance on that changed. Because, like, that's the thing. Kiyosaki is not in charge of the Future Foundation. Tengan is.
Yeah.
Like, Tengan is the actual chairman of the Future Foundation, and if Kiyosaki says, we're going to do this, and Tengan says, no, we're fucking not, guess what? They're not. Like...
which is an important thing to kind of fall into the events that are occurring in Future Arc, wherein he isn't doing anything to try and stop the whole, like, hey, we should just vote for who to kill.
Yeah. Even though, like, 5 minutes later, he's like, oh, violence only leads to despair.
Yeah. Like, he's clearly against violence, but he's doing nothing to stop it.
Yeah, overall, I think it's... The anime is definitely interesting, and it has a lot of the Danganronpa flavor to it, but I can also see absolutely why they wanted to do this as an anime rather than a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because within a game, it's a lot harder to write it in such a way that you still allow sort of player interactivity. but also have these sort of moving parts come together the way you need them to. I'm sort of interested to see if that complexity carries through to the rest of, like, the future arc. Like, the Despair arc, I can absolutely see, like, there would be very little to do in a game if it was like the Despair arc side of things, because again, it's mostly just like small vignettes of character interaction so far. But like future arc side of things, I can definitely see, at least so far, this definitely is something that works better as an anime than I feel like it would as a game.
Well, the part of the problem is playing through Despair arc wouldn't really be great as a game.
Yeah.
That would be your daily life / free time events.
It would be a
If this
visual.
was a game.
It would be like the pure visual novel section would be that one, and the like invest game section, because it wouldn't really be investigation per se, would be the future section. But this works a lot better as an anime in general. I mean, I could also argue that Danganronpa might work a lot better as an anime in general, but that's not matter entirely.
Having watched the animated adaptation of the first game, I can assure you it doesn't.
Okay, fair enough.
At least the original Danganronpa was very much balanced around having like you actually interact and like things that are more acceptable in a game, like, you know, basically kind of giving limited information to the player, don't translate as well in like an anime where the viewer is it's harder to justify doing like an anime essentially entirely from like one character's perspective.
Yeah. Although that might be a side effect of adapting a video game that is built to be a video game.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is that the adaptation of the first game, while not terrible by any means, I have certainly watched worse anime than that. It definitely does not work as well as the actual game does, as far as the story goes.
By saying you have watched worse anime than that, I know what you will tolerate when it comes to watching things, so... Yeah, you're saying the floor really, really low there.
Okay, it's middle of the road. It's fairly generic. Like, it is definitely brought up by the, like, aesthetics and just sort of feel of Danganronpa, and, like, the very interesting and quirky characters. But the actual events, I think, play out much better when you're doing it in a game, because you're more invested in it.
Yeah.
I guess is probably the best way to sort of explain my stance. It's easier to get invested when you have some control over things, even if you are, like, in a game like Danganronpa, you are in control of the character, but you really have no particular control over the story, if that makes sense. Like, the events play out the way they play out, regardless of what you do. But you still have more investiture into it because you're involved in tracking down the clues and figuring out what's going on. Whereas in something like an anime where you're just sort of passively watching, like you can put time into like looking at it and being like, oh, what's going on? Like, I wonder how they did this. But you're less invested because you can't really control anything that's happening. So with that, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up.
Before we wrap up,
yeah.
So for future arc,
Mm-hmm.
do we want to go? Do we want to try to guess who the traitor is? For those who haven't too far ahead.
There's only one traitor, and this is a 12-episode arc, effectively, on future arc.
Yes, future is 12 episodes.
We might want to put that off until later.
There's nothing wrong getting guesses right now.
Yeah,
I mean, right now we've got the biggest.
They can change each episode as we find new information. Like, obviously, like, I think Great Gozo's the person. If he like dies in the next few episodes, then obviously that's not true. You redefine your guess.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to make guesses, I will recuse myself because I know who the traitor is.
I'm going to recuse myself not because I know who the traitor is, but because I have extra clues that I'm not going to want to use.
Fair enough.
Clue.
I can't remember anyone's name for shit, so I had to look up a cast list.
I also looked up a cast list, but I also specifically just got their name and their ultimate thing.
All right, Shiv, do you have any thoughts on who the traitor might be?
I have 2 ideas.
Okay.
One of which I would find incredibly funny, and the other one, just based on a slight little context thing that we didn't go over in the episode. Idea 1 is that God, I can't remember her name. Ultimate homeroom teacher or homeroom
Chisa.
or ultimate Chisa. Given that she was part of the class that became Ultimate Despair, it's entirely possible that she's a Despair herself.
Okay.
And thus, is the one who got the thing in their system and everything.
And they're doing the Junko thing again of her like faking her own death at the very start.
I don't know if they're necessarily faking her own death as much as maybe they did actually kill her, and the game doesn't necessarily work with the straight information we've seen.
Okay.
But like, or her being involved in it in some way just because she could very well be a Despair.
Okay.
The other person I have a thought on, because he's the only person who commented on something occurring during the events of the first episode of Future Arc, is the old Tengen. Because during Future Arc, when everyone finally gets gathered together before the Monokuma stuff happens,
Mm-hmm.
He specifically calls out that the animator is there.
Yeah, he's surprised to see Mitrai.
Like, everyone else seems like it's perfectly normal. He specifically calls it out, which is weird if they're having a meeting.
I honestly just like took it mostly because he wasn't there before.
Yeah, he did show up kind of late, so.
Even brought up that he showed up late and like was hesitant about going into the boardroom because that's just the personality he has.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's valid thoughts. Hunter, did you have any thoughts?
Something that was revealed in this episode, which I feel dumb for missing, actually kind of ruins my initial thought. My initial thought was that was actually the animated. Being that dumb me, I actually thought it's just like, wow, he really changed when he was from when he was a kid. I had actually meant to grab a screenshot of him from the first episode to of each arc and compare them. But,
yeah, no, Mitrai in Despair Arc is the ultimate imposter.
The second you mentioned that, I'm like, how did I fucking miss that?
I didn't notice that. In 2, he was disguised as Bakia.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's in the Despair Arc, they try and make it pretty clear, solely because they add the question mark to the end of like Super High School level animator, and also anytime his name shows up, it's in quotes.
Fair enough.
That's more of a subtitle thing, but yeah, no, like the Mitrai quote unquote that's in Despair Arc is absolutely the imposter.
Like I could see if we hadn't played 2 being like, it's weird, like something up with him. Given that we've played 2, he's the imposter who was Byakuya in the events in that game.
So he was my initial suspect. I have 2 that are suspects due to the end of episode 2, but at the same time, I feel like they're too obvious, so they're probably red herrings.
Okay.
And that is, so in the locked room where they had saved themselves, there's only 4 characters. One of them is dead. It's obviously not Naegi, so that gives you the options of Great Gozu or Gekko Gahara as the 2 possible traitors.
Okay. All right, yeah, that's good thoughts where the evidence definitely does point. Krampus, do you have any thoughts?
We don't have a lot to go on as far as who the traitor is.
I mean, if the answer is no, the answer is no. You don't have to have a guess at this point. Like,
yeah.
I don't really have. I don't really have a guess as to who the traitor is at this point. We just don't have enough information. We've got a bunch of characters that got introduced and a bunch of people who are clearly more than a little off kilter, but I don't think we've gotten any evidence as to who like could have done this.
Okay.
I also do have a question of, is Monokuma playing around and maybe the traitor, quote unquote, unwittingly did something? Like they're a traitor because they unknowingly brought something into the base, but I don't know for certain.
Well,
no, to clarify that, there is a singular traitor who is not actually put to sleep when the bracelets put everybody to sleep. They get woken up and kill somebody.
Yeah. They are actively and willingly working with Monokuma.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's the way that the killing game is explained in this one is not explained very clearly, especially given like what we're used to from the other Danganronpas, where it's like realistically anybody could kill anybody and try and get away with it. In this one, there is a singular person among the people that are at that base who is working with Monokuma and will wake up every time they all get put to sleep to go kill somebody. It is the same person every time, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, the way it was explained in the actual in the anime does not make that exactly clear, but that's what they mean. Is that like there is an attacker, not like each time there is a different attacker.
Yeah, I don't think they're implying that like it wakes you up and goes you have to kill someone. It's more of whoever the traitor is never goes to sleep. And
I thought that would fit in more with Monokuma's theme.
Nope, because again,
well, that wouldn't make sense. Like Nagi's not going to kill someone if he gets chosen to be the person to wake up.
Yeah, and again, because the win condition for this game is literally the attacker's time runs out and nobody's died.
Right.
Literally all it would be if somebody wakes up and they go, "You're the attacker, you have to kill somebody," and they're like, "No, fuck that," and like all of a sudden, okay, the game is won.
Yeah, they're basically trying to figure out the intention is for them to figure out who the traitor is and put them in a situation where they aren't able to kill anyone.
Yeah, where they cannot actually kill somebody.
So like whether it means like killing them yourself or because that's the whole reason why they're trying to kill Nagi with the vote is if they kill Nagi off then and then no one dies the next time they fall asleep they win. For Dickbag McGee who thinks Nagi, the person who fought off Junko in the first game, is clearly part of Despair. So like you could kill the person who's the traitor. You could presumably like tie them up to a chair or something so they can't get away, or anything that prevent them from being able to actually kill someone during the night should be a win for the Hope side.
Keep in mind, we do know why they suspect Naegi being a traitor.
Because
the reason is dumb.
No, the reason makes perfect sense. The ultimate
doesn't.
the ultimate despairs have disappeared. We know that Naegi is somewhat involved with them disappearing, and then he comes back without giving us information of what happened to the ultimate despairs. It looks suspicious. I understand where they are coming from in that point of view. They're also dumb for ignoring the fact of the ultimate hope. Like, the whole point of him being brought there in the first place was to question him about it.
Yeah, they were going to question him, and then, Fur Coat McGee stalks him in the solar plexus.
Yes, their method of questioning him is assuming he's guilty and beating the crap out of him.
Oh no, that I admit is dumb as hell. But their reason for suspicion is understandable.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and call it a day here for now. So we'll be back next Saturday with the second session of Talkin'ronpa, where we will be covering Future Arc and Despair Arcs, episodes 3 and 4, if you're interested in watching along and kind of joining in with us on that. We will be back tomorrow, assuming we can get the audio working properly, with the first episode of the start of our playthrough of Tales of Berseria, where we're actually going to be doing a full multiplayer playthrough of that game. We'll be returning on Tuesday. You guys still going with Prototype, or did you wrap that up?
Yep, we are still going with Prototype. So I think we're probably going to wrap up on Tuesday.
Okay, so we'll be back
the
on
spooky string.
Tuesday with Prototype, and on Thursday, I'm guessing more Fae Tactics, because that game is surprisingly long.
Yeah, I was surprised.
It's about as long as I thought it would be. We are actually getting closer to the end, but yeah, there's stuff to it still.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us again for this special Sound Goblin Storytime presents Talkin'ronpa. Hope you all have a great day, and once again, I've been Bograt.
I've been the Krampus.
Shiv.
I've been Hunter Green.
And I'm the traitor.
Oh, we found him.
I knew it.
Beat him up! Kill him! Have a good one, y'all.